Did you call it audio chart?
Yes.
Oh, very nice presentation.
The jack you just plugged in.
It's very forward. His friends, it's just Jack.
How's Jack? Is it? Oh, it's getting a bit formal. Let's open a video and see if we can play a video. Soon. It's not. But. Presto.
Yes, Melismatic montage, that's suitable for Whitney Houston. She
She'll
should
be-
start, in a minute she'll start singing, not quite yet. Now she's singing, but she's not. Well, good morning and welcome to Helsinki.
It's playing.
Yeah, I'll tell you about what you're seeing there. It's the, oh never mind, it's lots of melismas going on the top line that you can't possibly follow because it's too complex. It's Modena MacDonald and her friends in the on the Isle of Lewis in the Hebrides. They're singing such florid melismas, pentatonic melismas, that makes Whitney Houston look pathetic because they're so much more ornamented than she is. She's supposed to be the pretty princess of gospel divas. So, it's not bad here either. You can't hear it at the moment. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, that saved a wretch like me. That's quite good, actually. I once was lost, but now I'm found. And then the whole congregation comes in. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. That's the pre-center again. Was blind, but now I see. So now you've got them, so I was in the wrong key, but it's early in the morning, so I'll start again. There we go. Okay, start. Slideshow. Where is it? Slideshow. Yes. From beginning. Okay. Okay, I will speak actually not much about the backbeats. I will certainly speak about Bluenotes, only a little about Scotch Snaps, but I will speak about melismas. Now what's all this about? When I was working in Sweden, the professor of linguistics at Göteborgs University, he asked me on 3 years in succession to come and speak about certain concepts. First year it was about nature. So he said, well, we're going to have philosophers there, we're going to have linguists there, of course. So I want to have what is the musical representation of nature? Of course, that was a very good request and a very good topic to talk about because I had to look at all pieces that were explicitly related to nature, as many as I could find. And of course, the musical definition or delimitation of nature, if you link it to the culture in which those natures exist, those musical natures exist, had a completely different, it drew a completely different cross-section through cultural reality. It told us about a nature that was far more, let's say, culturally archaic. It was even more the case when you looked at gender. So things you wouldn't say in normal kind of liberal intellectual life about gender stereotyping, about gender roles, were there in the music every time, especially if you looked at Hollywood film music, to see what tropes, what gestures, what ethnic stereotyping to a certain extent, but certainly what gender stereotyping there was, what kind of activities were relating to that music that was explicitly in its turn related to gender. They had a woman's name, the theme had a woman's name. or something like that. So, I think that these kind of studies have been very useful. When somebody out of cultural studies asks me, or asks another musician, or music theorist or musicologist, to tell them what is the musical representation of X, Y, or Z. War was another, nationality was another. These are very useful ways of studying that a musicologist, a musician can help. And what I want to do today is quite simply show you how the falsification of the history of ethnicity in the United States, created by ourselves as liberal, kind of guilty white, usually male individuals, progressive of course, and nice people, we're all lovely, how this can be corrected through musical analysis rather than by some kind of cultural studies trope. So that's what this is about. So here I go. Now I've got some general axioms, but I'll skip those because they're just obvious. I'll do the last one. So studying particular aspects of musical structure, historically and socially, that can provide particular insights into the history and society in which they exist. That's what I just said. Okay. So stop that. Let's get on. So the problematic stereotypes of music and race that I'm going to address are, these are stereotypes, okay? The corporeal is African. The cerebral is European. Pitches outside the 12-note tempered scale are foreign, and therefore they're African. Can't be us. No way. Pitches conforming to the 12-tone tempered scale are all European. That's us, we're just boring people. Rhythmic complexity and improvisation are African. Let's project it onto them, because that's not what we allow ourselves to have. And then rhythmic simplicity and lack of improvisation are European. Now those are obviously absurd stereotypes, but they do prevail amongst jazz musicians just as much as they do amongst fans of the Euroclassical tradition. The question is, how do we refute these stereotypes, or at least make them a bit more? So, what I'm going to look at is, you can't only look at just a set of musical structures, and I don't want to problematize now what a musical structure is. I'm not going to do that. Well, I have to now, I've said that. So, a musical structure, you can define it in very general terms, from a poetic viewpoint, that's to say, a constructional viewpoint, what means are necessary to create this? How do you do it? E minor major 9, for example, is a poetic descriptor of the James Bond chord. If you play it on the Fender, the end of the James Bond. You must recognize. Don't you recognize that? Yeah. Right. So that is that contains saltus duodiscus if you make an arpeggio of that chord. So now the point is about this that is if I say E minor major 9, that's a poetic way of denoting that sound. Because that's how a guitarist would think, oh, it's an E minor, got to stick a major 7 in there if it's a major 9, and a major 9. Wah, wang. Okay, so, but you can have it as that's a poetic descriptor. You can also have an aesthesic descriptor, which is based on aesthesis, i.e. on perception. You can call it a detective chord, or a spy chord, or an urgency cue, or something, something like that. Yes. How the hell could, but this is the problem of a musical structure. So it has to have a name, all right? It's the same trouble. You can't play it. I can't go and play James Bond chord every time I want to say the James Bond. Right. So a name. So we need to look also, apart from structures, we need to look at historical, including demographic issues. Like if we're looking at the history of music in the United States since the European arrival of Europeans there, we're going to have to look at West African, and we're going to have to look at stuff mainly from the British Isles. You'll see why in a minute, and of course Central European as well. But I'm not dealing with that at all now. But why not? Why aren't I dealing with that? Well, because Dvorak, as you probably know, said that, yeah, it's very surprising, said Dvorak, there's a lot of common, a lot of Negro music sounds like a lot of Scotch music. So niggers and Scots, it's the same musical thing. Of course, he was thinking about gapped pentatonic scales, and he was also thinking about the Scotch Snap, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So I'm going to do a musical zoom in on Bluenotes, not so much the Scotch Snap, and melismatic pentatonicity. Okay, not the banjo, don't have time to do that. Why should I do the banjo? Because it's round the other way. About most of these things, you'll find that they have, you know, in history, they have actually British origins. Bluenotes have as much British origin as they do West African. You can't tell which is which, even in history, way back in history. The Scotch Snap is obviously Scottish, but there are rough equivalents of what you might find in the African tradition. Backbeats are probably much more a European thing. Cross rhythms are certainly more developed in West African music. Melismatics is almost only a European thing, but they acquired later on by African Americans. But it's historically it's European. As we should think, banjo, we think that that's a white instrument. It's not. Historically, it's an African thing. Started off with the same Senegalese chord and such instruments. Okay, so here we have some. We have British Isles, we have West Africa. That's just in case you didn't know where they were. And of course, we need to know how this works. But I'm taking this straight from history teaching, so you don't need to know this, and you don't need to know that, because you know that already. So let's get on. These are important statistics. In 1800, the US population was 5.3 million. 80% of those were of British origin. That's from the British Isles. 10% were African and 10% other. Yeah. Can you follow these? That's interesting. That's when the Philadelphia Germans start to think that, you know, they're wonderful. You can't harmonise an Irish melody. So they had to rewrite the Irish melodies in Philadelphia so that the Germans could harmonise them. So, last of the Americans, that's just to let you know that the Native Americans disappeared, so to speak. Okay, this is important. Between 1840 and 1890, over 50% of US immigrants were from Great Britain or Ireland. You know, you have to understand the British domination, so to speak, in British Isles, right up until the Irish famine, then lots of Irish. Also, pre the Highland clearances, before the Battle of Culloden, 1745, they were only English. They weren't Scottish even in the United States. So everything between 1609 and 1745, that's like almost 150 years, they were English people. They weren't Scottish, they weren't Irish. But if you go to the United States or Canada and play them English tunes, traditional ones, they often say, oh, that's Irish, or that's Scottish, or it's Celtic. Quite extraordinary. It can't possibly be English, they say. Okay, potato famine in Ireland, lots of Irish after that time. Yes, the official abolition of slavery. Before slavery, there was probably more intermingling of races than there was after. One of the things we have to remember, and you'll see it when we get to the melismas, is that slaves were forced to go to church. The only time they could congregate, the slaves, was in church on a Sunday, and they had to go to a usually Presbyterian church with their slave master and his family. So that's where they would get to hear a lot of the music that they subsequently appropriate and with which they are now identified. Okay, so after 1890 it's different. That's when the Italians and the Russians and all those other people start coming to the United States. And then that's when you start having recordings. And here we go, looking at British immigration. I'm doing the historical bit first. We get on the music examples soon. So, two types of immigration to the United States, or what became the United States. One, 30% skilled and quite prosperous people, you know, who often went for religious reasons. They would tend to hit the New England area, and then the poor single young men, usually, very few women, there was shorter women there, who go to the Chesapeake and below, you know, down to the southern, what became the south. And it's the second lot, 70%, who are interested, you know, from a musical viewpoint. So after the union of England and Scotland in 1707, and after the defeat of the Jacobite rebellion in 1745, more Scots than English moved to the United States, and they mostly go to the southern part. What became the United States? It's still the Virginias at the time. Okay, more figures. The New England Brits arrived in the 17th and early 18th century, prosperous people. The Virginia Brits, those are the people in the south, throughout the 17th and 18th century. From England and Wales, before the Industrial Revolution, which started in the mid-18th century, and they're from rural Britain, I underline that, increasingly from Scotland during the 18th century. Musically, these people emigrated from the United Kingdom without ever having heard Handel, who was imported by the Hanoverian dynasty to London as representative of regal power and of British imperialism, if I can say so, the British monarchy at least. Secondly, they never heard brass bands, never heard symphony orchestras, and any other type of official music, never. They never heard the accordion because it hadn't been invented, the piano because they couldn't possibly afford one, it hadn't been invented, and other equal-toned instruments, not even a harmonium. They had heard none of this, so they had no sense of tuning in their heads. And of course no recorded or no broadcast music. But they had heard rural popular singing and dance music, so-called folk music. They maybe had heard simply harmonised hymns, like from the Scots Psalter or from Wesley's Psalms and Hymns, but you know, that was a bit late, came a bit late for the early ones. And of course they would have heard fife and drum military bands. Do you know what this is? You have little mini flutes and the snare drum. Okay. So, now, if they arrived in what became the USA with such musics in their heads, it's not surprising then, on the right there you can see Cecil Sharp, who was the great kind of guru of English folk archivism. You know, he went and collected all the English folk songs. And I don't know what relationship he had with Maud there. I think she was his secretary. You know. So I know. No, why not? It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So anyhow, here he is in 1906 or 1969 in Kentucky at a railway station. And they're, as you can see, doing some field recording. No. Okay. So I'm going to quote what Cecil Sharp said in 1916. This week, says Sharp, I took down, I notated, 3 ballads he had heard, which I had seen in Child. That's Francis Child's book, the collection of English ballads. And Child was an American who lived in the United Kingdom. And between 1882 and 1898 produced the English and Scottish popular ballads. Okay? So that's where all the old stuff was written down, so to speak, so that people like Sharp could check it out. But he found, you know, just listening out there in Kentucky, 3 ballads which he'd never heard sung before in the UK, in Somerset or Suffolk or wherever he was going. And to which there is no published tune. So nobody knew what tune these things in Child, which was like 20 years before, 30 years. So he heard them. The first of these is one of the oldest ballads known. It's the prototype of Lorne Rendell, a very rare and valuable find. And then he concludes by saying, this field of research is a far more fertile one upon which to collect English folk songs than England. So you'll find the English folk songs, and they're kind of more original tunes in Kentucky or in Tennessee in 1916 than you will in the United Kingdom, because, for obvious reasons. Do you want the reasons? No, you understand. It's all to do with industrialisation. It's to do with what Peter van der Merwe. This is a really good book. If you ever want a good book about this thing, it's called Origins of the Popular Star by Peter van der Merwe. He's a South African, Afrikaner. And OUP, 1989. He says, taking all reservations into account, I believe the biggest danger lies in underestimating the isolation of their lives, of the kind of poor white people's lives in Kentucky, Tennessee and so on. The lack of canned music, the scarcity of professional musicians, and the grip of tradition. Yeah, I think you do risk that. So now I'm going to start by playing some British Blue Notes. You what? British Blue Notes? You must have been crazy. There are 3 examples you'll hear in a row here. A weaving song from Hebrides, that shows you where the Hebrides are. If you didn't know, that's where they are. The red bit, okay? And you'll hear some blue notes in there, and then we're going to listen to this piece, the lost soul, one awful day when the judgment comes, and the sinners hear their eternal doom. Oh, that's heavy stuff. And then finally, wake up, darling Corey. What makes you sleep so sound? Them highway robbers are a-coming, they're a-coming around your town, whatever. There you go. Right, let's go for it. Coming up now, 5 seconds.
Why shall the forty devoted why shall the forty devoted
I don't know what time signature it is. That's definitely okay, here we go, the top one's recording late for business.
What an awful day, when the judgment comes, and the sinners hear their eternal doom, that's a sad decree, that far, far in the endless pool, and blow, miss, blow, and blow. Eternal doom, that's a sad decree, that far, eternal doom,
She's in no doubt. She's halfway between. I buy her a bear. She's singing such good notes. That old woman with the glasses there. There's that one. What's it? I'm doing all right. It's going okay.
Wake up, darling Corey, what makes you sleep so sound? Them highway robbers are coming, they're ringing around your town. Wake up, darling Corey, what makes you sleep so sound?
Thank you. Now go back to the presentation. All right, those are those things. These are just 3 examples of old-time singing, which my students in Montreal would say they are out of tune. You know, obviously, they do not intend to be out of tune. They intend to sing those bloody notes. They mean those notes. They don't mean anything else. That old lady, you know, she's just like she's clear as a, you know, whatever, on a C and a half, you know, a C half sharp, or you know, there's no doubt. I don't know if you can hear this. She's just, fuck you, I'm singing this now, you know. If you don't mind saying so. Good on her. Right. Okay, now I just want to mention a study that one of my PhD students did a long time ago about, it's called the Big Beat, Origins and Development of Snare Backbeat. I just want to say, I'll quote, read one of his conclusions, which is that the emphatic backbeat, you know, the 2 and the 4 and the 4, 4, 1, boom, cha, boom, cha, boom, cha. You know, the snare, whack, you really good whack. Conventionally held by rock historians, and these are mostly people from cultural studies, to be an African-American trait is just as common in music of British and Central European origin. This is absolutely true. If you read Moffat, who was a Scot who lived and worked for the King of Savoy, you know, Savoy in the mid-18th century, he advises that, you know, that the military orchestras should ensure that there's proper backbeats, that they should whack 2 and 4, or just 2, very hard. You know, so as in fact, I'm not going to do the Strauss polka because I haven't. So they have you know, an example of this, what Moffat would be talking about. You know, how you get, you know, even if it's a fast backbeat. Now I've got, this is a huge thesis. I mean, Gary looked at, well, okay, I'll give you the basis of his empirical evidence, which is he went through 1,400 extant recordings of rock and roll music, on R&B, produced between 1945. What time do I finish? 11?
Yes.
Okay, I'll finish at 4. Okay, 1945 and 1955, you know, the advent of 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, to discover where it came. In 5% of cases, they were in R&B. 5%. It was with, and only Earl Palmer, the New Orleans drummer, Earl Palmer, he was the only one to do it on a regular basis, of those R&B players. But you know, that's New Orleans, which is half French and half Caribbean anyhow, so it's not really. All other cases, the R&B drummers and the jazz drummers, of course, would be either shuffling or do it in 12/8, you know, in swing time. They would be in those things. There wouldn't be emphatic 2s and 4s. Because you wouldn't be playing in straight 8th notes, right? You'd be playing in swung 8th notes, you know, triplets. Yeah? I hope I'm.
Yes.
It's okay. Eso knows what I'm talking about, because they very rarely do it in heavy metal. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I'm doing it. Okay, sorry. Get on. So I think that makes a clear case. I don't want to go into that anymore. It's a long story, but that is another case of mistaken identity. Oh, it's a backbeat, it's not on the downbeat 1 or 3, so that's not like Central European Euro classical music, so therefore it's not European. That's bullshit. If the guy in working for a colonialist Central European orchestra wants his military to go and invade the natives with a strong backbeat, excuse me, you know, where are these people? I don't know. Okay, now I won't go into this either because this is about Scotch Snaps. Instead, I have a 1 hour and 14-minute video online, free of charge, Hollywood feature film, no joke, that tells you all about the Scotch Snap. I'll just give you a little idea of what this is about. So, it's about the rhythm of prosody in the English language, which also exists in Gaelic and to some extent in Welsh. It exists arguably in some words in Finnish, but apparently not in Estonian. In Finno-Ugric. Well, certainly the Hungarians have a Hungarian snap. Igen. Yeah. So, but it doesn't exist in French, German, Italian, Dutch, etc. It doesn't exist in those languages. It's the rhythm that says, do it, get it, matter, pretty, Annie, Peter, Philip, David, Scottish, okay, all those words, you know. Ah, hello, Uncle Philip, is what my nephews would say when I phone up. They live in Glasgow. Oh, hello, is that Sam? Hi. Hello, it's your Uncle Philip. Ah, hello, Uncle Philip. That is a real Scotch. Hello, Uncle Philip. Okay. Oh, sorry. It says afterwards. So, here's a Strathspey. Now, if you can tell me where the downbeat is in this Strathspey before 8 bars has gone, very good. You know? There you go. 1. Now we know. Did you get that after 4 bars? I can't. Could you get it after 4 bars? You must be very good Scottish violin players. You know? Okay, so that was... Shit, why's it coming again? Mid-20s recording, and just a final one now.
15 bells is my game, 15 is my drum. Red call is his name, instead of Arkansas.
Very subtle singing. Excuse me, you might not like the sound of his nasal voice, but you know that last line, 2, 3. Randall Collins, 'tis name and stay up. You know, it's Randall Collins, 'tis name. He's gone to 6/8 there, hasn't he? Sorry. I really like this way of this prosody and the way you kind of phrase things. Incredible. Okay, so we have snaps, we have cross rhythms, they're going hemiolas almost. So let's go into that. Of course, yeah, this 1, 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Want to do the Melismatic and I'll finish. Okay, that's played a bit too prettily, but it nevertheless it's played at least with decent rhythm. So you have a good sense of how hemiola works. This is galliards, and of course there were no bar lines in music in those days, and that didn't appear until the mid-18th century, at the height of colonialism. Don't ask me if there's a link there. I leave that for you to work out if the bar line relates to the arrival of clock time, of meeting, and of colonialism in Europe. Interesting question? Not an answer. But maybe we should be asking questions like that, you know, as musicians, as musicologists. Question. Right. Finally, the last aspect is the melismas. As you know, melisma means singing more than one, or really two syllables, two notes to one syllable. Syllabic singing, one note per syllable. Melismatic singing, many notes to one syllable. So, I'm going to play you 3 examples. Good. Two notes too many. I couldn't resist it. They're singing this tune, would you believe it? I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay, next one. I tried to sing this at the start. Do terribly well, I'm afraid. Yeah, I have to start there. Not too far out of time. Sorry, let's start it again. Stop it, thank you. Go back here, thank you. I don't have time to do my conclusions, but never mind. Who needs conclusions? Maybe just a quick one. Quickly. Why is this here? Should be okay. I'll just do a quick. Can I just do some quick conclusions? Please do. Okay. All right. We've already had that. The people from Britain left before the Industrial Revolution. They settled down in the south. For at least 150 years, they lived in isolation from urban cultures. They were never exposed to music from Central European, of that origin, but they were in contact with the music of slaves deported from West Africa. There were lots of common traits between the music of the slave population and the British immigrants. They share, as Dvorak remarks, Scotch and nigger melodies, very similar. You have the Scotch Snaps, and you have basically why the Scotch Snaps are important. It's because if you ask a Ghanaian, you know, if you ask a West African to give you the rhythm of a piece of music, they won't go do, 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 they go, you know, something like that, you know, and they give you a backbeat, you know, they'll give you a kind of screwed up, they'll do that first, and of course, if you're rhythmic, I'm not explaining why that is so or how it works, but I think as the way of starting stuff, and you hear, and then you got the Scottish, that Scotch Snap or that English rhythm, you get. There is a similarity there that you can latch onto. Of course, the da gets flipped backwards in the middle of that 6-beat unit, so it goes, you know, so the dotting, so to speak, has flipped, you know, so it's become dad. So you've got 6 beats in there, okay? Yeah? I think you get it. So they were all up for that pun, and of course it's a pun that the Scots have, you know, the guy playing his Strathspey has a similar thing. Of course it's much more developed in the African tradition, but they recognise the pun. You know, they know a pun, well, you know, musical pun. Sorry, that was that. You know, these communalities are important. Okay, acculturation, good. So, conventional discourses about North American popular music and about North American culture in general characterise cultural traditions according to hegemonic categories, which were institutionalised during the slave trade, which provided the economic basis for the foundation of the USA. So it's no wonder if we get these weird kind of categories. By so doing, these conventional discourses exaggerate racial difference at the expense of social and cultural similarity. I can't have us thinking that we're half nigger, can we? That consequent confusion of racial with cultural traits leads to the identification of false others, which are characterizable in either derogatory and racist terms or ostensibly positive terms. Oh yeah, inverted racism. Oh, they have all the nice, you know, evil stuff, and they're all sexy, you know. Oh. So positing false otherness, impedes identification of otherness in terms of oppression and alienation in the context of hegemonic home culture. Inside ourselves, it can be even inside ourselves. We can't recognise the other, as Christopher calls it, l'étranger dans nous. There you go. So, rationalism, which was hijacked by capitalism since the 18th century, was not applied systematically to irrational aspects of human organisation, not to theories of society, the individual, emotions, body, gender, etc. Not until the 20th century. That's a long time to wait. We still have to create alternative discourses to deal with the socio-cultural realities of shared subjectivities. Amen. That's all I wanted to say today. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Phil.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Very nice. Any
fun
questions
topic.
or comments? Make brief one.
Thank you, Philip. It is not actually a kind of question, but a good comment. I was really astonished of your third example when you, in your Blue Note session, because the music itself was 100% of blues scale. That, but if you open any kind of jazz history book, you see that you can read that the blues scale was absolutely 100% African music and African representation. So it's just really, really excellent example of yours too.
Well, I can, you know, there are millions or thousands of examples. So the most common scales, you know, okay. According to A.L. Lloyd, in England, this is focused on in England, something Ionian or hexatonic with a major third, often without the major seventh, is the most common mode. But then the Mixolydian is very common, you know, something with a flat seventh and a major third. And then the Aeolian and the Dorian are very common also, much more common in England. This is only English focused on than in other places in Central and Western Europe. Now, in Scotland and Ireland, there's an even greater proportion that are out here. And the norm is like some hexatonic. But I want to say that tomorrow, because I warn you, tomorrow I'm going to talk about hexatonicism and why is there no terminology of hexatonicism. I just don't get it. You know, hexatonic. You know, it's so common. Oh no, that's tomorrow. So, minor pentatonic, you know, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Okay, that's so typical of a popular song, rural popular song from the United Kingdom. What is the United Kingdom and from Ireland? Okay, from those two nation states. And the difference with the blues scale, which uses minor third, is that there's an occasional addition, especially in places like Mississippi, in the real south, of a flattened fifth, the flat fifth. So we go dee dee da, you know, where so dee 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 do. That will happen, which you don't get in the British Isles.
But the third.
But the third, yeah, the third.
And then seventh was
But it's
there.
what the medieval music theorists used to call musica ficta. You know, it's, who knows? You can look at manuscripts from the 16th century and you say, well, was it an F or was it an F sharp? You know, people knew. You know, were they singing F? Were they singing F sharp? Were they singing halfway between F and F sharp? You know. Anyhow, yes.
Very quickly, please.
Sorry.
Minor pentatonic, yes, it's very wide use, but how about combining that with major harmony?
That's it. That's another one. That's what happens in heavy metal. Sorry, you know, it's so typical. If you have a banjo or any other stringed instrument that's really open tuned, especially if it's tuned in fifths and octaves, it's much better to play a major chord because you have 5F. You have 5 times the fundamental frequency of the. Because this is in D, that tune is in D. So you go you just do D, and the F sharp's going to be up here anyhow. So you're going to play F sharp. You're going to be hearing F sharp, but you're not singing in that mode. You're singing in a different mode. It often happens. You know. The heavy metals, you can correct me if it's wrong, because I only know you can correct me if it's wrong. But if you play parallel fifths, you go do do, oh, they're fourths, aren't they? Sorry. Oh, I'm going to make this do 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 do. If you do that, you're going to get those overtones there. But you're going to do it from, what's it, an F or G? G. So you're going to G, B flat, C, and the G is going to have the B up there. You go to straight to B flat. You know, then you get D. So there's no incompatibility, and there isn't there isn't in kind of Elizabethan music either, where you can have an F sharp and an F at the same time, or just a minute after each other. So off you pop there, like so. The flat 3, singing it or having it very close to a major thing, not a problem in Europe. So why should it be a problem for the African Americans or for the Euro Americans and the Appalachians? Or anybody? Thank you. Yes,
Many thanks, Phil. Sorry, I'm going to be really brutal about after this, about the schedule.